The following videos, I think I've made 4 of them, are an exploration of elements of Megaman X8. And specifically, it's in response to unknown-xz2vm, who wanted to hear what I had to say about the flaws of X8 in more specific, because I mentioned them when talking about the X8 demake, which I still recommend you try out. And also, while I'm plugging indie projects that are related to Mega Man, I should also note there's a thing called Megaman X Corrupted, which is amazing and has been in work for years. And I think you guys ought to check that out. I don't think it's been released yet, but it's shaping up very beautifully. Oh, very beautifully. So I think you should definitely give it a look, sir. So, anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, this is Redcoat of Vernacular Games, doing something a little bit lighter today. One of my commenters had requested that I do a talk about my impressions on X8, Megaman X8 to be exact. And so I figured I would go in on it and why I think the game is flawed and just kind of hit it from point to point to point. This video might have a few cuts here and there because at random points sometimes my recording software will kind of frazzle, so I just have to make sure that I keep my recording period down so that I don't overload the amount of memory that I'm putting in to get stuff, so I get actually good quality sound. Anyway, to start, overall, X8, the general populist's look at X8 is that it is a weaker successor to X7. Well, I should say it is a stronger successor to X7, but it's a weaker entry in the Mega Man X series in general, and I would agree with that general feeling. Like, the reason why people had such a positive response to Mega Man X8 was because X7 existed. Because X7 was such a travesty, anything would be better than that. Well, maybe not anything, like Devil May Cry 2 comes to mind, but a lot of it wouldn't be quite as good. So the general thing is that Mega Man X8, pace-wise, misses the mark. And if there's a core issue that I think that Mega Man X has, it's that. And that you can see that throughout the entirety of the design. Not just in the way that stages are paced, but also in the concepts of what kinds of things do we have the players doing on the regular. So, to get at that, let's first address the core concept of the game. So, per my definition of a game, which is foundation, support, and refinements, three parts. Think of it like a house. When you have the foundation, the scaffolding, and then the actual stuff that makes the home a home. The foundational aspect of Mega Man is platforming. The supporting aspect is shooting. And so it's a jump and shooter. If you took out the shooting, you'd still have the platforming that you could do stuff with, and it would still have elements of the feel. It's just the shooting informs the platforming, informs the challenges, informs the obstacles, and the way that you get around things. And the refining layer, of course, is it's the way that you select things in the stages. It's the way that the core gameplay is presented, as well as little elements here and there that are quality of life shifts. So from a foundational layer, there's already kind of an issue just with the fact that they're in 2.5D as opposed to 2D, and so there's certain tricks that they can't do because in 2D, because you've got a lot of tweening happening, and there's an intrinsic lack of information from point to point to point. You can actually drop frames to make things come out more snappily. This is a thing that they do in Street Fighter and a number of other fighting games, where you'll have the start of an attack, and then you'll have the end of an attack, and it's just kind of there, as opposed to actually seeing them tween through to the attack happening. Even in something as fluid as Street Fighter Third Strike, you're still missing a couple of frames here and there on certain attacks, although it's still very, very fluid. And the thing is that you risk making a thing feel unnatural if you tween too hard, where it's just unnaturally fluid. When you're working with models, the problem is that you already have the model there, and so it's a lot harder to drop a frame, because you would literally have to remove the model or something along those lines. Like it's a little more difficult to actually get the same concept from 2D animation to 3D animation. Now, that said, Guilty Gear Xrd exists, and they basically pioneered a methodology of applying 2D techniques to 3D models, but X8 came out before that happened. So, I mean, on a certain level, they had a design challenge that they needed to deal with, and that kind of messed up a little bit of the flow and a little bit of the feel. So it's not as snappy as other Mega Man X games. Like it's close, but it's not quite there. So that's just on gameplay feel in general. Now, when we get to the concept of the way that the game presents the challenges and is played, that's another thing. And so we're going to cut here to make sure that I don't overload my memory, and then we'll start again. Thank you for listening to this broadcast from Vernacular Games. I'm Redcoat, founder of Vernacular Games. If you'd like to see some of the other things that we have done, you can check out our game, Highway to the Moon, on Steam and itch.io. It is a scrolling shoot-'em-up with 8-directional, or rather omnidirectional aiming, and some interesting little shenaniganry going on. We also have Legends of Mathmatica Squared, a tongue-in-cheek RPG, well, classical-style RPG, with math puns galore, puzzle dungeons, and an active time battle system. In addition, we've also released this children's storybook called The Fairy and the Dragon. We did this in partnership with Inertia Productions, and their author and the lead author, Jeffrey Morgan. You can find that book on BookBaby, also Amazon, but you might have a hard time finding it there. Additionally, we are working with a client to get a card game out into the world. It is called Record Biz. The client in particular, Brian Garrett, he is actually a member of the record business, and he wanted to impart his knowledge to the world. And what better way to do that than with a game? And so that is the mission, let's say. So it's building a card game that kind of operates a little like Monopoly. It's got a lot more agency than Monopoly does, if I'm honest, and allows you to take up the mantle of a record tycoon and deploy your mans out to different performance venues and record songs and make money off of those song assets. So it's a nice thing. It's a really cool thing. If you want to try that, if you want to check that game out when it comes out, we've got a waiting list that's going to be underneath this channel, underneath this video, that you can just click on it, go there, get on the list, and then as soon as new things come out, we will let you know. It'll be great. It'll be great. Now, with that out of the way, There are other things that Vernacular Games is working on. However, it's been a bit of a slog of a year, I'll be honest. But hopefully, we'll have things to announce to you in the coming months. But until then, you've got me as a talking head to listen to. Hi. So, without further ado, this is Redcoat, signing off. Play the games you want to play, boyos. Also like and subscribe!